Um, hello, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on UFC 5 as well as presenting my 60 scoop information. So yeah. So first, starting off with some of the UFC 5 tutorial. For like your jab. Okay, okay, restart. Hello, I am going to be presenting my 60 scoop presentation as well as doing a UFC 5 tutorial. So I'll be doing that together. Starting off, right? Square on the PlayStation controller is your left hand. Triangle is your right hand. Circle is your right leg. X is your left leg, right? So, and you can put modifiers on these things to depend. So if you're holding L2, right, and click any of the buttons that previously mentioned, those are going to be body shots, right? So hold L2, it's body shots, body kicks, body punches, right? Now, if you click L1 for the upper hands, it's hooks, right? So left hook, right? And for legs, it becomes head kicks. So right head kick, lead head kick. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm gonna get into the 60 scoop thing now. So for the 60 scoop in the late, a lot of people don't know this, but in the late 50s and to the 80s, the indigenous people were taken from their homes by Canadian welfare authorities and placed into foster care and adoptive homes with the motive of forcefully assimilating them into Canadian Eurocentric culture and norms. With approximately 20,000 to 22,500 Indigenous children were taken into this program away from their families, and by the 1970s, one third of all children in foster care were Indigenous. So that's the first part of the 60 Scoop that we learned that was very interesting. And yeah, so to continue the tutorial on my UFC 5, for leg kicks, right, you just simple tap left, right? So you would click X, right, for the left leg, circle for the right leg, right? So, and for uppercuts on the upper hand, so instead of using the L1 modifier for the punches, you would do the R1 modifier, R1 triangle, R1 square, right? You can do this to the body R1 L2 triangle, R1 L2 square, right? So that is where it gets a little bit more interesting, like because you can mix stuff. You're not just doing jabs and straights. You're adding some power punches in here, and that's to do overhand, right? As previously mentioned, how you would do a hook is L1 and triangle for a rear hook. But if you hold L1 and hold triangle, you do an overhand, right? So that's so that's how you do some of these more powerful strikes, right? But these take more stamina. So, and they also leave you more open to being countered and such. Um, throw a knee to the body, you would block with R2, right? You block your head with R2, block your body with R2 and L2. You also defend takedowns this way. But you would throw a knee to the body by holding R2, so you're holding block, and then click circle. Or click X for the lead knee, circle for the rear knee. Same thing with elbow, right? Hold R2 block, triangle, rear elbow, square, lead elbow, right? And then then it gets more a little bit more complicated with certain yeah, so let's continue the 60 scoop thing. Um, the indigenous people were being taken from their families and placed into foster care. It has had a long-term generational pain and suffering to them, and a loss of cultural and self-identity, as well as sexual abuse that took place in the foster care system at the time, particularly to indigenous people. So this covers what the how the event impacted the indigenous people's lives in Canada and in the past and today. So how this impact is carrying over from when it happened into the lives of them today. And I also covered in the first section the who, what, when, where, and why of the 60 scoop. So continuing, right? You can do some spinning attacks here with so this is circle and X at the same time as the spin. So, right? You can do so you would spin, and if you click circle and X at the same time and circle, that's a spinning back kick to the body, right? If you do the same thing, circle and X at the same time, then X, that's a spinning wheel kick to the head, right? And I'm not too sure. Yeah. So so that's one thing. And if you want to do a knee to the head, right? Think of the head kick, right? You add with the head kick, you would do L1 and circle, right? Well, it's basically the same thing for a knee to head. So if a knee to the body with the R2, right? R2 and circle, you do the R2 circle and L1, knee to head, rear knee, right? And as you do most knees to head, but for this knee, the lead like flying knee, right? You do just R2 and hold X, right? So yeah, and then as well as that, you have you can shoot a takedown. How you would shoot a takedown would be hold L2, triangle and circle, click triangle and circle. So that's a double leg takedown, right? Now do a single leg, hold L2, square and X at the same time. Single leg, right? So these are the main mechanics of the game. There's obviously more things and like certain specific moves that you can add onto that. So we're gonna end this off with the 60 scoop, my third part. Uh, how has this been attempted to be remedied? Is the Canadian well, how this has been attempted to be remedied is that the Canadian government has given 500 to 750 million dollars in compensation to settle claims of the 60 scoop, and Canada can continue its path to remedying this event by continuing to financially compensate as well as helping build programs to help people express and discover and reclaim their culture over time. Because the 60 Scoop took away a lot of their natural culture and that was very historically important to them. So I think the Canadian government trying to fund programs and stuff and businesses that can help them kind of maybe try to get back some of their old culture and maybe start new culture that has to do with that, right? To try to for them to get their culture back and reclaim some of their self-identity from that. Okay. Well, this is the completion of my video, so there.